Hi, welcome to video 14. In this video, we will learn understanding Google search text box, locating, extracting, and handling responsive web elements like text box or Google search box, writing a program to send the value with Google search box, writing a program to navigate with multiple pages in the same browser with navigation commands available in Selenium, writing a program to get the button attribute, locating and extracting web elements using Xpath, handling buttons, scrolling web page with JavaScript Executor. I want to open a website which is called google.com. So we want to do a little job. So let's assume that I want to enter something here. I want to enter something and click on the search button. So maybe like places to visit near me, right? So that's what I have to do it. Plus, I should also click on Google search. So when I click on search, it pretty much searches the resources, whatever I have it. So that's where I want to go ahead. Now, just before that, let me go back to google.com. I want to identify this text box. So how do I identify the text box? The quick and easy method is you just have to right click on the browser. Preferably, I want to go with the Chrome browser because they do a fair job compared to other browsers. You have to go ahead, install a lot of plugins and so on. So I prefer to stick onto a Chrome browser. So now I select inspected. I just maybe like you can even enable the crow path here. You have, I hope you have all installed it. Then I'll select this guy who's an inspector and hover it and click and leave it. So now there are like various things which can happen. So of course, CrowPath is little intelligent tool. It gives you a right one. But let me also show you something here. Even if in your screen, the entire world, this page is the same. So if you just have a look at this, I have a div. The div name is pretty much pointing here. I want you to keep an eye on this text box as well. So I have the moment I hover, it refers to text box. I hover on this, it refers to text box, same text box. I hover on this, it refers to same text box. I hover on this, it refers to same text box. For all the four, it refers to same text box. Now, if you are not running with some fancy tool like a CrowPath or Xpath or whatever it is, if you want to still barely run, now there is a confusion. Oh, which one shall I select? Now, many times when people develop the application, they keep this text box, something like this. At least for google.com, I want to keep the text box like this. Now, this text box, on top of this, there might be another text box. It's just on top of this. If you see on top of the black, I have layered orange color text box. Probably on top of that, I want to layer uh, blue color text box. So eventually, you see here, there is a black. On top of that, there is an orange. There's on top of it, there is uh, the blue, and so on. So now, if I just put it across, I have one, two, three. There are like three text boxes. Now, the whole idea here, people with some designers, they would have mapped it, but the whole idea here is each text box will represent its own requirement. For example, if I have a user who's coming out, now I don't know who's the user. Is he a web user? Is he a mobile user? Or is he an app user? Whatever. So what these people do is they pretty much construct the same application but they'll have a different text box so that if the request comes from mobile, then there is a different um, text box which is enabled. If it is from mobile, it will be a different, and so on. The whole idea is we believe in something called as, at least these days, a responsive web design. So if you see few tools, somebody like Angular or React.js, Backbone.js, and all these things, they internally use something called as Bootstrap, which is a CSS designer or setter for the layout or web applications. They use internally what is called as RWD, which is meaning responsive web design. Responsive web design. So the whole idea here is something like this. Let me go back. I'll show you some nice tool out there which I've installed in my system. This is my Google Chrome on my browser. I also have a small plugin which we tested for mobile compatibility. I just click on this. The moment I click on that, it'll ask you, hey, which mobile you want to try with? Do you want to try with iPhone 5, 6, 4, Galaxy, Xperia, Lumia, etc., etc.? Is it in portrait or landscape? Let me just click on any one of it. The moment I click on it, it'll give you the look and feel what you can pretty much have it for iPhone 6. So likewise, if I go back to somebody like iPhone 6 phablets, I have tablets, phablets, as well as phones. So maybe let's consider iPhone 6 Plus. Oh, here, look at this. Now what happened? I should have a text box here. I should have a text box here, and I should have a text box right here. Now, I don't want to construct the text box so many times. Look at this. I don't have to construct so many times. Rather, what these people do is instead of creating multiple pages, they go back and create something like this. They want to have multiple um, uh, text boxes on top of each other. So if we again go back and have a look at this guy, I'll inspect it. I'll inspect it. There's a big div. There are like set of four divs. Let me right click and copy the HTML element. So copy the element, perfectly fine. So I just want to put it in Notepad. Of course, we're going to delete it in a sometime. I'll open it and look at this. This is where the entire div is. Let's go back and identify where is the first div. The div opens here. The div opens here, and there is a slash div which closes here. That's the first div. So if you look at this, this is your first div. All right. So here, yeah, from here to here is the first div, right? So inside this, uh, I should also find there's another input box. Okay, input. That's the first input. You could see it here. Uh, Maybe on the first line. The first line. I have the first input box. Let's go back, do a little work, find next, the second input. I wanted to find next, the third input. I wanted to find next. Uh, yeah, they're like three inputs, one on top of another. So each of this has its own design. Each of that is used for its own business logic. So, but the thing is, they're all wrapped inside one div. Look at this, they're all wrapped inside a single div, or they're nested div, whatever. But now I want to identify which one is valid. The whole challenge here, trust me, over a course of time, if we want to be a good Selenium or a tester, don't be very focused on Java. Of course, that's one of the tool. Tomorrow it may be changed to .NET or Python, whatever it is. I don't It doesn't make any difference. The whole idea here is to understand the Xpath. Given the feed, I don't even know how many are wrapped inside each of it. In order to extract it, we have to be clever enough to take this, copy it, keep it here. But now, if I start analyzing it, this will give you a lot of information. So first and foremost, there are few. The moment I look at this, there are few input types which are disabled, which are not visible. What? So if you look at this input type, the class is GSFI, which is disabled. Oh wow! So it means this input type with the ID, which is called GSTIFO, is disabled. In similar fashion, there's another ID which is called as GSTHTIFO, which is again disabled. But on the other end, I have this guy. You have got this guy. This guy pretty much is not disabled. I don't see it anywhere. So you have the name as Q, autocomplete as off, search title, blah, blah, blah. You will not find anywhere it is disabled. So for me, this is something which is relatively which I have to use it. But if you want to do it on the automation, if I want to test it with the mobile or desktop, tablet, phablet, and all those things, in such cases, if it is tablet, Probably this may be the text box. You don't know. Today, this is disabled. If you look at this, these two people are disabled because we are invoking this with desktop. Tomorrow, you come out with some other tool, somebody like Browser Stack, where you want to do testing on mobile browser, or somebody like Ranorex. In such case, we are not using Selenium. Let's assume that in such cases, this may be disabled. Whereas any one of this may be enabled. But how do you know it? I want all these things to be programmatically checked because we will try writing one snippet of a code or one piece of a code which should pretty much map for mobile, tablet, phablet, whatever. So I'm just trying to write like this. If first element is enabled, send details here. Else if second element is enabled, send details here. Else if third element is enabled, send details here. I hope makes sense. This if else ladder can go to whatever extent. Tomorrow there could be any complicated side. The whole idea is this. So I say that, hey, look at this. I want to search. I want to have a string which is called as str. Str is equal to places to visit near me. So now I want to send places near me, but I don't know how this testing will happen. The tester tomorrow comes out, you want to test it on desktop or tablet, phablet. I should have a case here. One test case should be sufficing our business logic so that it can pretty much go and test anything. I want to do it for million time or billion time, that's a different story. So now let's go back. We have known it. So I would just want to drill down to a little important. The first aspect, what we do is we want to test it. I want to do it based on the ID. That's the first thing. So this is my first ID, LSTIB. There's another guy who is ID. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. I want to copy this. And there's a second guy. There is a third input type with the ID here. So the same text box has got three, but which one is valid? I don't know. Since today we are seeing with the bare eyes, it is making sense. Tomorrow, if I ask it to write the same test case for mobile or tablet or tablet, oh, now again I have to go back. Likewise, if I have, tomorrow Google has gone crazy and say that, okay, for Samsung Galaxy, we'll have one text box. For iPhone, we'll have one text box. For Google Pixel, I'll have one text box. For OnePlus, I'll have one text box. We're like nowhere. So now I don't have to go physically and check it. I have to do this. Some kind of business logic has to be incorporated to make sure that they can fit into any of the requirement. So let's copy this guy. I'll copy this for some time. Let's go back to Eclipse. So here I want to create a new test case here under basics. New. Let's create a Java test case. I want to say this as Google, mm, something like Google search test. I just want to number like O2. I want to little do copy pasting from the previous example because we have done some good job. So I want to have login test. I just go back and copy this setup and tear down, and whatever changes is required, we'll try making it. I'll copy this, right click copy, and here I just paste it perfectly fine. So this would not be the URL. The URL for us today is this guy, who's google.com. So I want to click and paste it here. Perfectly fine. And Chrome key and Chrome path remain same. We want to load the driver. Tear down, we're just quitting it. Perfectly fine. So moving further, I want to do a Google test. So the method name can be anything. So public void Google test, or yeah. So this should be good. It's good. We can annotate this with the test, do a control space, and it should start working. It should give you a auto pop-up, and it has imported org.junit.test case. So now we have this guy. There are like three people who are waiting. Who is valid? Who is invalid? Even I don't know. I may have to check all these things programmatically. So in order to do that, in order to do that, great. So in order to do that, what I do is, so first and foremost, I would have something like, let's check if it is enabled or disabled. Uh, I want to have a string called as search query. So somebody is querying it today. I want to query for something like places to visit near me. Okay, so this seems good. I want to check web element. I don't know if you could recall yesterday. Let's go back to the first example, understand some basics. Somehow it slipped out of my mind. So we try writing this statement. I hope this is clear. Here, if you just take out this part, only this part, what is highlighted, it is an, we call it locators. Now, this locators will be wrapped inside find element. So now I'm trying to find an element. Let's hover on top of the find element. You see here, find element, which comes from org.openqa Selenium WebDriver find element by some class or some locators. But this guy returns something called as web element. Either you can try writing it directly, or you can store this in a web element so that I can hold an element. I can pretty much do it, um, store it in a web element, then access it later. In order to do that, what I do is I'll declare a variable which is called as web element. So which is from org.openqa.selenium web element. This is where the import is. Here, as a web element is something called as search element. Right? So maybe just to feel good, I'll set it to null, no hard and fast rule. I'll say search element is equal to, I would say something like driver dot find element. We have two things. One is element, one is elements. Elements, I'm gonna come back to that little later when we see some example. But as of now, let's concentrate on element, which gives you one element. Now, what is my element? I don't even know. I don't even know. So let me also do it. Since we are doing a good program, let's do it. Good program. I'll say element one, element one is this. That's the first element. String element two is something. String element three is something that makes sense. So here, just want to copy it and paste it. Copy it and paste it. Very good, very good. So you got like three elements. So first and foremost, I want to find the element. I don't know what element to search for. So first and foremost, if I want to send some value, I would say go here, take element one. So let's do this. Let's do this. So what this guy does is he will take the element. I'm sorry, by ID element one. So this guy, what he does, he will return something, and that will come and store it in the element. Now I have to check if search element, the moment I put a dot, just spend a minute here. If I just scroll down, I should find a lot of options. You see here, there are some good readouts which we can have it. It says, is it displayed on the screen? Is this enabled? Is this selected? So you have like all this is function which will tell the status of the element that they don't do a job. So now I want to check if this element is enabled. If this element is enabled, right? If it is enabled, only then I can say element enabled is okay. So here, which element is it? Element one. So I hope this is making sense. Now I can say uh, search element dot send keys of search query. So what is my first element, which is called LSTIV? If this is enabled, then I want to do it. But if you want to have it on a larger scale, try to do it if else, if else, if else many times. Instead of creating many variables, what I can do is I can reduce this code little more. Um, anyways, driver dot find element one. I'll just copy this guy, copy this guy. I'll put it here. So hope this is making sense. Element one dot driver dot find element by ID. Just give me a second. I think this is perfectly fine. Q dot is enabled. Okay, so I may have a little copied it. Okay, so here, yeah, makes sense. So this guy who's a search element, as of now, let me comment it. Let me comment it for whatever reason. So here, I will say search element is equal to this is my element today. Today, this is my element. Then I will send it. I hope this should make sense. Else, if. What is my second case? The second case is I want to check instead of element 1 if element 2 is enabled. Else if element 3 is enabled. So if you pretty much look, my one test case can suffice anything. So let's assume this is little imaginary. This is for desktop. This may be this if condition, right? Maybe I am not promising it. Maybe for mobile, right? This may be for tablet or phablet, whatever case, no, whatever. I don't know what it is. So now the whole idea here is if it is enabled, if it is enabled, it will go here. If this is enabled, this will go here. If this is enabled, it will go here, right? So I hope this should make sense. So here I'll just copy it quickly. We want to complete this program. Great. So here I want to have element 2 copied everywhere instead of element 1. It will be element 8. Great. So send keys is perfectly fine. Control V, Control V. This is element 3. Yeah, this is 3. This is element 3. I'll right click, run as JUnit. I think this will not load. I made a mistake. Made a mistake. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. Because we missed one line. I'm sure that we have missed. Here, driver dot get. Get, what is our variable name? The variable name is called URL. Because we have to invoke the browser to open URL, right? I'm sorry. So let's run as Jane. All right. So great. This is awesome. Look at this. Element enabled is LST IB. We'll have a look at another program, just for an instance. Let's assume we have a requirement that, yeah, something like this. I may want to go to google.com. Let's consider this itself is one of the site and you are doing some search, perfectly fine. Then I may want to open yahoo.com and I want to do some work and we don't want to stop. I want to do msn.com. I'm searching for something here. So what happened? Eventually, I have one, two, three. So these four, or I'm sorry, one, two, three browsers which you have got, I have to open each of this and start doing navigation. So I may have to go here, then navigate to yahoo.com. So this page has to go to yahoo.com. In yahoo.com, we do some work. Once the job is done in yahoo.com, maybe I'm going to MSN. So rather, the whole idea here is not to make one test case in one page, rather, it has to happen in multiple pages. Now let's see how we can achieve it. In order to do that, I'll go back to this program where we have this login test. I'll create a new JUnit test case. Let's consider something like navigation, navigation, multiple pages. This is our third program, O3 dot, yeah, should be fine. Finish. So here I don't have much thing, but I want to take it from login search or whatever, the previous example where we have put some nice information about setup and tear down. I just right click and copy it. Here, navigation multiple test. Yeah, here it is. So I have like a URL. So let's call this as base URL one, string base URL two. Maybe you can have as many as you want. String base URL three. So hope this is making sense. So the idea behind is, hey Naveen, today we don't have to, or our requirement has gone so high that we don't want to have one test case to test only one page. Rather, one test case should be testing pretty much in like five different pages. So it should test in one page, then it should finish the job, go to next page, finish the job, next go to, or or there are some crucial things in our business logic. I have page one, page two, page three, page 4, page 5. Imagine something like this. I want to start with page 1, perfectly fine. I'll check the condition, right? Some condition. Based on this, I want to navigate to page 3. I don't want page 2. I want to start with page 1. I'll check some conditions. Based on this, I want to execute page 4 and page 5. Or website one, website two, whatever. So that's absolutely the business demands. But if you have something like this, then this is our test case, which we're gonna do it. So let's go back here. Uh, yeah, yeah, here. So navigation. So I made a typo here. So let's right click and rename the unit to navigation. Perfectly. Sounds good. So this navigation multiple page 03. So this will be base URL one. So I just want to keep it google.com. No problem. The next guy we wanted to have is want to copy paste couple of times. One is URL two, one is URL three. All right. So here let's open whatever page we have it. This guy is good. So whatever, now he's taken it as in.yahoo.com. Since I come from India now, um, this you may have to change it, or even if you do it, I think it should still work. I've tried this in US, you can still access Indian site. So it is like in.yahoo.com, or probably you can just put it like yahoo.com. It'll by default take the country specific. Then I would go back to MSN and I assume that, okay, this is something which I have to do. Perfectly fine. So the whole idea here is I have like various pages, base URL one, base URL two, that may be part of the same uh, application, or they may even be different application. So it is homogeneous or heterogeneous, whatever. But the idea here is to test all these things. So let's go back and see public void uh, navigation test, right? So here, let's annotate with at the rate test. I do control space, you take it from org.junit. That's perfectly fine. And the first statement which we would like to put is driver.get. So whatever page you want to load, I want to load base URL one. So that's your first page you would like to load. Now, I want to do some job. I'm not doing a very hardcore, let's not do hardcore development here. Let's focus more on understanding the concept. So what I do is, I say, hey, once the page is loaded, I'll ask Selenium saying that, hey, can you give me the title of the page? I'll say string, uh, let's say base URL title is equal to driver dot get title. Perfectly fine. And say base URL title. So whatever page which is getting loaded, base URL title. So once if this is done, I may have some job. So we'll do some job. For doing some job, I would just put thread.sleep. We're just simulating it about for 2 seconds. 2 seconds, right? So this guy gives you an exception. I can go ahead and try surrounding this with the try catch block every time, or let me put throws interrupted exception. Okay, so that our code looks clean. Or you can surround this with try catch block, whatever is good for you. No? So assume that we'll do something here for this simulating. We are simulating where we want to keep like 2000 milliseconds of delay. Once after this, I don't want to do driver.get. Okay, so now if you do driver.get, what happens? There will be two browsers loaded. So it's something like this. Imagine yourself, if I'm trying to do browser, okay, so browser.get URL1, right? Browser.get URL2. Imagine yourself, it's something like this. Now, what happens? Eventually, this guy will load one browser, this guy will load one. If I have 10 times, 10 browsers will be. But my requirement is not this. I don't want to have too many browsers. Rather, I want to navigate to many browsers. The whole idea here is I still want to have the same old guy who is our browser. Once this is done, it has to go to another browser. And so on. It has to navigate from one to another, right? So once it is done, because we'll be writing some if conditions, right? In case if you want, you will write if conditions. Either it has to go here or it has to go to some other, but it should be single window. So either we are passing like this or we are passing like this, but it's a single window. If you want multiple window, then you can do browser.get any number of time so that n number of browsers will be open in the world. But anyways, let's go back here. Once I have loaded, I want to give like 2000 milliseconds of delay. Then let's navigate to um, let's navigate to base URL2. Okay, so in order to do that, I can say driver dot navigate. So if you see here, you have somebody called as navigation. So navigation will take you from one window to other window. So navigate dot to. Okay, now look at this. It says to. I can either pass a URL or I can pretty much give you the string. So since I have a string, I can say base URL2. Right. A simplest understanding for this is something like this. Let's assume I'll just close this Windows Explorer. I click on Windows Explorer here. So here I want to go to C drive. I want to go to online training and SDET main. Let's consider material. Now, since I have navigated, I'm sure that we know we have this back button enabled. Why did this back button enable? Because you have navigated and your Windows Explorer is maintaining the history. So when I click on back, you're gonna go back. When I click on back, you're gonna go back. At the same time, I can also click on forward. I can also click on forward. Look at this, we are only navigating. I'm talking only in the entire screen, I'm concentrating on these two ends where you want to navigate to and fro. Because once we did this business logic, I want to start from page one. I go to page three, start with page one, go to page four and five. Again, you may want to come back to page one, and we want to retain some values. Maybe like a classic example of this is something we can do it with login management or the session management, where the user data is kept in one screen and we keep navigating to different screens. Still, we want to execute the business logic. In such case, they're like very good uh, candidates. But anyways, so here, keeping it short, let's go back to this guy. We want to go to base URL 2. So I'll use the same variable. Use the same variable. I'll say now the base URL title, whichever is loaded, is equal to this guy is driver dot get title. So I want to know who, whatever title you have it. So I just copy this and put it here. It's easier. Uh, After navigation, base URL title is whatever we have got it here. So once if this is done, I might want to go a little more fancy on the same page, whichever is the page we want to uh, reloading the page or refresh. I want to refresh. Maybe there are a few components which we are looking for, which has to be refreshed. Need not to do that. Driver dot navigate dot uh, refresh refresh. I can refresh, right? So once after refreshing, again I can say after refresh get title. So it is driver dot get title. I'm just trying to print it directly, or if you want, I can say base URL title is equal to this and use the same variable. Perfectly sounds good. Right. So once we refresh, imagine in our case what we have done. So first page which we wanted to load is google.com. From there we went to URL2. URL2 is yahoo.com. From yahoo.com we got the title. We refresh it and we get the title. And again, you may want to go back or you want to go forward, whatever, you know. So here I just want to say, hey, look at this driver, navigate to back. So when you say back, it means where should it go with? It is moving from Yahoo to Google. Hope this is making sense. When you say navigate, here uh, moving from Google to Yahoo, right? So here I just want to make it little commenting, loading google.com, right? So you can go back. Now I'll say, hey, once you go back, get this title, and after navigating back, likewise, you have back, forward, refresh, reload, a lot of functions, out there which will help us for day-to-day activities. So let's go and check if this can work and see. I've not used msn.com as of now. Let's right click, run as JUnit. Mm-hmm. It went to yahoo.com. So I'm just keeping the console here. It went to yahoo.com. It's taking a little time. Yeah. After navigating, the base URL is Yahoo. Reloading the page, a refresh happened. Once after refreshing, it is going to google.com. So it has exit. So it pretty much did the job from moving from one corner to another corner for its execution. I want to load one page just to show it. Let's go back to a page, somebody like navinks.com/web/registration form. So I can click here, I can pass the value, I can click here, pass the value, pass the value. This is something which is feasibly been doing it. This one, just give me a little time. This may not be immediate next program, it'll be next to next. So when we want to get um, the list of values. Of course, this is again a kind of text box and so on. We also can go ahead and check on this. There's a small date selector. If you have something like travel plans, then there are some favorite languages which will pretty much act like auto suggestion. What's going to happen on google.com? It's something like what language you like. The moment I put J, it gives you all the languages which has got J in it. If I put A, it'll give you everybody who's got A in it. If I put P, it'll give you everybody who's got P in it. That's the whole idea. You have a checkbox and all these things. But now I have a requirement. It's not only to send the values. Rather, I want to go to this guy who's called a button and I want to get the value. So the idea here is not something like this. It's not something like this, where you have somebody called as Selenium who's sending value to the browser. That's what we have fairly started now. But my requirement is in your page, you have a button or an attribute, whatever it is. I want to get that and give it to Selenium. That's other way around, right? So I just want to try that with somebody called as registered user. So let's go ahead and understand to deal with this. For register button, let's right click, inspect element. Right. It has pretty much referred here. Let's inspect it for a minute. So it says that input type is submit. Let me zoom in. Yeah. Input type is submit, perfectly fine. The class is button, BTN primary. The value is register user. So what I want is the value, whatever the button value is. And many a times we would have seen in a lot of websites that the button value keep changing it dynamically, right? So I want to trap that value and give it to the user. So let's see how to tackle this. So first and foremost, here for this guy, unfortunately, he doesn't have the ID. He doesn't have an ID. In fact, this I myself have prepared the sheet. I made sure that there is no ID. So when I wanted to have ID, I would have probably did like this. I deliberately have not done it. So here I would have given ID is equal to reg btn, something like this. But unfortunately, I don't have it. I have to go ahead and delete it. So this is what my page looks like. What can I extract? I can go ahead and extract it with ID. Of course, we've been doing it. Or I can extract this with XML or Xpath. I'm sorry, with Xpath. So for doing it, I can select this guy, copy with the XPath. I just select XPath here. I'll paste it. So this is the XPath for the input type button. So I'm sure that this should make a sense because this I'm just taking it for a couple of classes before, which we discussed it. I go to root element, go to HTML body. In that, go to first div, go to form, go to 15th div, go to div inside this, find the first input type. Now that's how we have to read it, right? So now I'll copy this guy and go back and try extracting details. So let me minimize here. I want to create a new class, a test, a new class, which is up to three we have done. Let's go back and create a JUnit test case, which is we wanted to have like multiple test cases, O4. So here we want to have this program. Let me just comment it. The first test case. So this program, this shall have multiple test cases. So that's the first thing. So out of that, the first one to get the attribute value of the button, right? So quickly, what we do is we'll go back to any of the program which we have done. So I'll just copy a few things, which is WebDriver up to this guy. I'm just copying it and pasting it right here, right here. So we don't have too many URLs until it is required. I'm gonna keep it on hold. So I just want to keep what is required, and this is perfectly fine. It's very simple. But the page here I'm looking for is this. I want to look for a registration form, and this is where you have it. So hope this should make sense. It's a very simple form class as of now. So here is a public void. Let's consider this method name is get attribute value test, right? So anything is good. I want to have at the rate test, perfectly fine. So this is you're gonna do it, which is driver dot get. That's the first state of base URL one. Once if this is done, we already have copied and kept few things here. I'm sorry, which is here. I'm gonna copy this. Let's go back here. String Xpath, right? So once I have copied the XPath, let's create a web element for this. Call the register button element is equal to driver dot find by XPath. So this time it is not ID, it is XPath. XPath is XPath, whatever XPath you have got it here. So this value we are just substituting here. So now this guy refers to an element. There could be one of the two possibilities which should happen. Either the element is found or the element is not found. Only two possibilities which can happen. So if it is found, it means I want the attribute. Of course, with this uh, XPath, there is a type which you can take the type as well, or the class, or you can get the value. So anything is fine. So now what I do is I'll say system dot out dot println. Okay, so I'll say string element value is equal to element dot get. Yeah, element dot. Oh, I'm sorry. This will be reg button element dot get. You see here. You see here. So I just let's spend a minute here to understand these things. The moment you look at the element, there are so many things which can come out. You can get the attribute. You can get the CSS value. Get the tag name. Get the text embedded within that. This location, until we do something like drag and drop in Selenium, yes, it is required from one location to another location. get the rectangle. Of course, screenshot, we're going to use it. And for some reason, if you want to get the size of the window, yes, you can try getting it. So it will give you in the form of a dimension. Dimension has got two values, x coordinates and y coordinates. But here, let me go back. I want to get the attribute. So what attribute you want? So the input type is this. There's an attribute here which is called as value. So I want this value attribute, whatever the value which is there inside the register button. So here I will substitute. Once it is done, the attribute value is element attribute value. So hope this should make sense. All right. So let's check if this works. Right click, run as JUnit. Great. So I have the value here, which is called as register user, right? So maybe, I don't know if you encounter, I did not like this output. What happened? It went down. Maybe it has gone down since the DOM is loaded. It has gone down and got the things. Mm. It got the things, but unfortunately, I did not see that register button. Certain cases, if you want to scroll down, it's something like this. If you are here, if you're here, if you're here, and if you want to scroll down, you can specify, oh, I want to scroll for like 300 pixels, 400 pixels, so that I can see what is happening. So that cases, we can make use of JavaScript. In order to do that, let's go back. Let's go back. So here, it's all good. Uh, Great. Scroll down. Page, right? Values to be given pixel. Makes sense. So here, uh, okay. So let me just narrate this. Here you have a page. You have a page, right? So let's assume this is your page, and of course you have something here, which is navigation. That's how the web page will look like. Now we have to understand few things here. We are using Selenium. I'm not saying Selenium here. Tomorrow you may be using somebody called as browser, stack, RPM, or Ranorex, whatever it is. So what Selenium do is they hit to the page. We always say when we talk about Selenium, we always say we hit to the page. We will not say they hit to the browser. Now, browser they do it, but unfortunately there are few elements as a Selenium cannot take it. That's absolutely false. This page has got two parts. So first and foremost, the outer curly braces. The next one is the inner curly braces, right? This one is called as document. This is called as document. When I say document, document will only involve what is highlighted in red from here to here. This is your document. This is also called as DOM. This is also called as DOM. Very important. You see this part? This is outer curly braces. This is called as window element. So we should also know the DOM or the page is nested within the window. So you have a window element. Inside this, you have a DOM element. So we have to know this is your window element. The outer one is window element. The inner one is called the document. Of course, in the document, you have various elements. That's what the whole idea which we want to. come across. But now we have this. What we want is we want to keep track of this um, guy who is called up and down arrow. So the arrow has to be kept. Unfortunately, you don't have document. What can be accessed with document is Selenium can only access document. But now Selenium themselves has got little more feature. It's been like pretty old feature from Selenium, not something which came out like recent days. Now what they do is Selenium, you're there, anyways you're going there. Can you give me this page element since you cannot access this guy who is um, your window events? Take this and give it to somebody called as JavaScript executor. Executor. It can give it to JavaScript executor. JavaScript executor can pretty much do anything in the world until the JavaScript can execute in the browser. And of course, every browser will eventually execute JavaScript. So now let's go back. Here, it's a very simple code. Here, scroll down. In order to scroll, get the driver element mapped to uh, JavaScript executor. Executor. Trust me, it's very simple when it comes to syntactically. It is only called as JavaScript executor. Executor. It's not exception, it's executor. So now I'll say something like JavaScript. Okay, I just say JS executor. I don't have little, I don't have space. So here I'll say driver. So when I put driver, I may have to cast it to JavaScript executor. So this is the same old polymorphism concept if you've been discussing it. Nothing special in it. Now I can say JS executor dot. You see here, there are like two functions from the 3x version. So from the 3x version, we have execute asynchronous script. So you have like asynchronous script. If not, you can go with execute script. Asynchronous script, as the name says, if you want to do parallel operation, that's a good candidate. In our case, both meaning the same, does not make any difference until we go with something like grid architecture. Where we want to try with uh, multiple instances at the same time. It makes sense, but yes, execute script will suffice the job for now. So I want to go back. If not, as of now, for this page, both methods does the same thing. So what I want to do now is, if you see this uh, way of value passing, the first argument is called string. The second argument is called object. There's something called as dot, dot, dot. There are triple dots. The triple dot meaning in Java, this was introduced from JDK 1.5, which is called as variable arguments. Let me just show you a quick heads up as what this guy will do it. So very important, very important. So just imagine yourself. Imagine yourself. I have a requirement, something like this. I have a public void method. I want to have a store with the products available in it. I'll say get store products. I have a string name and I want to pass for this method. Let's assume you want to pass products. How many products you have? I don't know. Since we don't know how many products are there, what I can do is I can pass this as a string array of products. This is perfectly fine. This is one way of doing it. Now the problem with arrays is that they have to give you constant size. Obviously, size has to be defined. Or what you can do is, oh no, we don't like to have products, perfectly fine. Rather, we want to have a list of string called as products. So this is your first method. I just want to call this as one. This is called as two, right? For whatever reason. So how do you invoke it? In order to invoke this method, you will say get products one. Let's consider electronics. Here, new string of laptop, desktop, whatever. No, this is how it looks like because you're passing an array of string. For this, if you want to pass it, You will say list string, list is equal to new array list of string. Here I can say something like list dot add laptop, list dot add desktop, right? And I will say get store two of electronics, comma list. This is perfectly fine. So I hope this should make sense for us. There are like two different contexts we are talking. But imagine something like this. There is a store which does not take product at all. In such case, we are like nowhere. This has to take string. This has to take list. From JDK 1.5, these people came out with something called as variable arguments. This meaning anywhere, a lot of functions are there in the world with the triple dot. When you say triple dot, this meaning you may pass or you may not pass. That's your choice. That's optional. If you want to pass, you can pass. If you don't want to pass, you don't have to pass. I hope that is making sense. For this guy, the second argument here is a variable argument. You see object dot dot dot. There are a few reasons of it. Let's not really worry about it. We're going to talk about that when we get this right opportunity. But anyways, so what we want to do as of now, I want to do window 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 dot crawl to. So I remember I've been working with this JavaScript for quite some time. So I just remember this syntax. If not, this is just a JavaScript. This is just a JavaScript. So I'll say system.out.println after scroll. So SCROLL, perfectly fine. So I hope this should make sense, right? We're just scrolling it. So let's right click. Okay, after scrolling, I want to say thread dot uh, sleep sleep of like 1,000 milliseconds, right? So let this throws IO exception. Oh, I'm sorry, that is interrupted exception, right? So let's go back and run as JVet. So it loads the page. It should scroll. Yes, it's scroll. You see this page? It got scroll. After scroll, you get this register button. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.